people a year, comes through the southern border, now the weakest border in history. It was the best border we ever had when I was there. We built hundreds of miles of wall and everything else, and it was the best border. Now it's the weakest. I had a handshake deal with him. It was going to happen very quickly, and then this side didn't do anything about it. He said, and he suggested to me, anybody sends fentanyl to the United States, it's the death penalty. They get the maximum penalty. They would have done it, and then we had an election that didn't exactly work out too good, and it was a disgrace, frankly. And that deal went, and a lot of other bad things happened, like Russia attacking Ukraine, October 7th, inflation. A lot of bad things happened, the horrible way we got out of Afghanistan. So many things happened that wouldn't have happened, but it did nevertheless. But as to the farmers, we have a deal in place that China is supposed to buy $50 billion worth of our product, and they are not living up to it, and they were living up to it. And every farmer I spoke to a lot of them recently in Iowa, and they're having the same problem. They're not doing well. They're not doing well. They were doing great during the Trump administration. I think you would say that. Were you all? I hope you. This is always dangerous to do, but I hope you'd say you were doing well, because you're not doing now. I'm hearing it from farmers all over the place, and one of the big reasons is they haven't enforced the deal with China. And that deal was really a penalty deal to China, because they took advantage of you for 25 years, and it was like a penalty. And, you know, Biden and Harris, they're never going to enforce anything. That group is a disaster. It's a disaster for our country in so many ways, but certainly the farmers are one of those ways. So I think either Rick, or are you starting off, Rick? Why don't you start?
Well, first of all, Mr. President, we really appreciate you being here as part of the Protecting America Initiative. We at Protecting America Initiative see China very clearly, as we know you do. China has quietly but strategically worked against us whenever we are distracted by wars or COVID. China goes in and absolutely tries to distract the American people. They work quietly. They go after our local and state politicians. They go after our manufacturing, and there is no question that they are looking to, at some point, leverage that investment and that activity. I've seen it very clearly at the UN, where the Chinese are very duplicitous. They have a permanent veto at the Security Council, but they also work with the G77 developing nations. They get money from UNICEF just to feed their people, while actually acting like a superpower at the UN. They are duping so many people. We know from your administration, Mr. President, you were not duped by China. You saw them very clearly. But for the past 4 years, while America and America's Democratic-controlled White House have been distracted by wars, China is getting into our farmland. And we have to be able to see China very clearly. So we want to thank you for being here, and Lee is going to take us off into Q&A.
Well, thank you, Rick. Like Ambassador Grinnell said, President Trump understood the Chinese Communist Party threat and protected Americans from the CCP's attempts to infiltrate America. It is great to be here with the 45th and our next President of the United States, Donald Trump. China now owns 349,442 acres of agricultural land in the United States. That is up 82% from 3 years prior. America's food supply and the farmland that enables it is critical to our national security interest, especially due to China's aggressive ventures into the U.S. food supply. While in the White House, President Trump took on China in many ways that stood up for American farmers. In 2018, he signed a law requiring the federal government to review CCP purchases of land around critical infrastructure, airports, and military bases. That is why we need President Trump back in the White House to pick up right where he left off and go even further. Another one of President Trump's greatest accomplishments was the groundbreaking United States-Mexico-Canada trade agreement that replaced NAFTA, improved supply chain resiliency, and put America's farmers first. The USMCA provided new market access for U.S. agricultural products, a fair, non-discriminatory pricing plan, and improved grading standards for products. It has been reported that the USMCA trade deal led to $2 billion in annual increases for the U.S. in agricultural exports to Canada and Mexico, with an overall increase of $65 billion in gross domestic product for farmers and ranchers. Contrast that to Kamala Harris's lack of support for U.S. farmers and weak stances on China. At the time, then Senator Harris voted against President Trump's USMCA trade deal, voting against America's farmers. Harris also opposed President Trump's necessary tariffs against China, and most recently cast the tie-breaking vote for the Biden-Harris scheme that has sold our auto industry out to China. That's what brings us here today, to discuss what Pennsylvania farmers need from the leaders to combat the threat that they see every day from China. President Trump is here with us today to listen to those concerns, to offer his remarks on China's influence over our food supply. And President Trump, if it's okay with you, I'd like to introduce some of our panelists who are here.
I'd love that, yes.
Our first speaker here is Todd Reamer. Todd is a cattle farmer from Westmoreland County. Todd?
Hello, I am Todd Raymer. I own with my wife a beef cattle, cow-calf operation right here in South Huntington Township. My concern today is with foreign entities buying up American farmland while young Americans can't afford to buy a farm or even get started. My American dream was to buy a farm and raise a family there. And I was fortunate to find a farm and purchase it 30 years ago while working a full-time job in addition to doing the farm. Finally, in 2010, I was able to quit my full-time off-the-farm job and devote all my time to the farm, something that is rarely achievable now. I know there are young farmers out there who really want to aspire to own their own farm and ranch, but they can't afford to do so with the high costs of the farm, the ranch, and the equipment to get started. We all hear the word sustainability. To stay sustainable, we need to give Americans a chance to own farms and ranches. So they can continue to produce the safest food supply in the world for generations to come. And perhaps a solution could be maybe to offer a retiring farmer or a rancher an incentive tax break if he sold his farm to a farmer or rancher, American farmer or rancher. Also, if I may, I understand that China now owns major meat processing plants. They hold the contracts on production barns, and they even own feed milling plants all in the United States. I believe that it is Americans should control their own destiny when it comes to food production and the future of it. It's a life of hard work and heartbreak, but I know there's some young farmers out there that can carry the load if we can give them the opportunity. I had an uncle who was a lifelong dairy farmer, and when I was a kid back in the 70s, he had a bumper sticker on his GMC Jimmy that read, "No farmers, no future." That was 40 plus years ago. Since then, technology and crop yields have changed for the better, but the message on that bumper sticker has not changed at all. No future, or no farmers, no future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Matt Carr is here. He's a third-generation farmer of dairy, corn, soybeans, and alfalfa from Westmoreland County. Please welcome Matt Carr.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity to be here. Like I said, like I was introduced, I am a third-generation farmer. I would consider myself the young farmer that Todd is talking about. And I am a small dairy farmer from Westmoreland County. We currently milk 250 head of Holstein cows twice a day. It is more than a job. It is a lifestyle, as you know. But I would like to talk now about what agriculture means to this country. Currently is 30% of the jobs and 7.43 trillion in economic impact to this country. Like you had said, you are pushing through to China for dairy products to be sold there. That is a huge market, and I would see that isn't a large area that we could expand into and continue to push to try to achieve those goals that you talked about. With that, in 1992, there was 130,000 dairy farms in the United States. That number is now down to 26,000. We are currently losing the small dairy farms, especially in Pennsylvania. Our dairy farm numbers are down 8% from 2022.
What is the difference in production? So you have far fewer farms. Well, what would you say is the difference in production?
Production is,
Similar?
in Pennsylvania, I think it's down a little bit.
It's down from those days?
Yeah, the farms are getting bigger. The number of cows are still very.
But the overall total production you think is down from what it was when they had so many farms?
Oh, no. Total production across
Total.
the U.S. would be up.
Is up.
Yeah. But we are losing the small family
Sure.
farm like
I
myself.
know that, yes.
Dairy margin is the margin that we have in order to make a living and a profit is extremely tight. Our input costs are up. So is there a way for America to, we talked about manufacturing, can we manufacture our own and not rely so much on foreign inputs for that in order to address what we need in order to survive into the future?
Thank you, Matt. Great job. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Nick Stafiri is a hay, beef, and pork farmer from Fayette County. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Nick Stafiri.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. President, for having me, and thanks for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Nick Stafiri, as they said. I'm from Lower Tyrone Township, Fayette County. My family owns a small 120-acre farm where we specialize in freezer beef and hay. My story's a little bit different than everybody around the table. I didn't grow up with a farm. I married the farmer's daughter, so I kind of got that on the backside.
Very smart.
My mother-in-law was a full-time farmer in our operation. My father-in-law, myself, my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my wife, everybody else had a job off the farm. From 1954 to 2015, we milked 50 cows a day, twice a day, no hired help. It was all on them. My mother-in-law decided to stop milking in 2015 and transition to freezer beef and hay. I'm going to be a little bit different on my story here because my wife and I are both energy workers. So with the energy transition in Pennsylvania, our focus and our ability to have take our financial resources and put those back into the farm has been tremendous. Without that energy job, we wouldn't have been able to better our farm and better our situation. Without my industry and my work family, the opportunities afforded to me, especially like this today,